After the defeat of the Romans at Lake Trasimeno, the Carthaginian army was firmly established in central Italy, threatening Rome. To once and for all put an end to Hannibal, Roman authorities conducted a total mobilization, gathering a huge army of 8 legions. According to historians' estimates, it was 86,000 people, 80 infantry and 6 cavalry. Headed this army consuls Lucius Aemilius Paul and Gaius Terrentius Varron. Without delay, they set out to meet a dangerous enemy. One of the most famous battles of antiquity and all of world history between the armies of the Romans and Carthaginians took place on August 2nd, 216th year before Christ in southeastern Italy near the Adriatic coast, near the village of Cannes, on the southern bank of the river Offid, today Ofanto. The battle took place on a fairly spacious plain. In the morning of August 2nd, the Roman army, followed by the Carthaginian, crossed the Offid and began to line up in battle order. The Romans stood front to the southwest, pressing the right flank of the banks of the Offid. Hannibal lined up his soldiers facing northeast. To the river approached his left flank. On the day of the battle, the Roman troops were commanded by Gaius Terrentius Varron. He staked on his numerical superiority, intending to concentrated frontal blow heavy infantry crush the center of the Carthaginians, disperse it and turn into flight. Cavalry Hannibal he hoped to neutralize his horsemen. In the center of the Romans located heavy infantry in 3 lines of 12 rows. Manipulus stood more closely and monolithically than usual. Gnaeus Servilius was appointed commander of this most important area. Roman cavalry positioned on the flanks somewhat unevenly, 2,000 horsemen of the Romans on the right and 4,000 horsemen allies on the left. The right wing was led by Lucius Aemilius Paul, the left wing himself Gaius Terrentius Varron. Light infantry even and monolithic formation placed along the entire Roman formation. About 10,000 men remained in the camp. Polybius states that the task of these soldiers included the capture of the Carthaginian wagons in the midst of battle. Hannibal had approximately only about 50,000 people. He guessed the intentions of the enemy. The Romans lined up much earlier than the Carthaginians, so arranged his army as follows. On the flanks of the cavalry on the right Numidian under the command of Gannon, on the left Iberian cavalry, as well as the Sacred Squad, they commanded Gasdrubal. In the center stood the infantry in the shape of a horseshoe, facing the enemy in an arc. The center of this arc was formed from the Celts. It was they were to withstand the most important blow of heavy Roman infantry. At the base of the horseshoe stood selected infantry Magoon. Light infantry, Balearic archers and slingers placed in front of the Carthaginian army. Hannibal's plan consisted in the primary containment of the center of the attack of the Roman infantry. At this time, the Carthaginian cavalry had to deal with the Roman cavalry and begin to cover the enemy from the flanks. Later in the battle was to enter the selected infantry of Magan and close the ring of encirclement. The battle began with a clash of light infantry. Darts, arrows, spears, stones were quickly used up on both sides, so the light infantry hurriedly took cover behind the lines of their centers. Immediately, with howls and shouts, the Iberian and Gallic horsemen on the left flank rushed to the attack. Roman cavalry right flank was initially deprived of space for maneuver. On the right was the river, on the left their own infantry. As a result, the riders of Lucius Aemilius Paul received a powerful blow directly in the forehead. There was a crush of men and horses, who could hardly move because of the cramped conditions. The riders of both sides even had to dismount and fight on the ground. After a fierce fight, the Romans were driven back and mostly scattered. Joyful Iberians and Gauls chased after the defeated enemy, cutting down the stragglers and wounded, and did not notice how they were in the rear of the Roman formation. At this time came into motion Roman heavy infantry. They pushed the Celts, but did not defeat them as Varron had planned. Legionnaires made a desperate onslaught and bent the arc of the horseshoe in the opposite direction. Manipulus began to quickly and tightly fill this peculiar bag. From the sides of the Romans began to press on the heavy Libyan infantrymen. Legionaries were forced to defend from 3 sides, The force of their onslaught sharply weakened. On the left flank of the Numidians attacked the positions of Terrentius Varron. The battle was fought with varying success. Suddenly, 500 Numidians rode into the Roman camp, abandoned their weapons and armor, and surrendered to the mercy of the victors. The consul was so reckless that he ordered the defectors to stand in the middle of his formation, then still sent them to the rear. A little later, learning of this act, Aemilius Paul exclaimed in despair, "It would be better if he tied them up or gave them to me for reprisal." During the next attack of cavalry, Gasdrubala defectors Numidians snatched hidden under long capes short swords and daggers, picked up scattered shields and spears, hitting the Romans in the back. Almost at the same time, in the rear of Varron struck more Gaulish, Iberian, and Carthaginian horsemen, who came from the opposite flank. Panic, crush, and complete confusion began. The left Roman flank finally disintegrated and upset. Gasdrubal and Gannon friendly struck in the back of the Roman infantry. Hannibal's plan brilliantly realized. The entire center of the Roman army was completely surrounded on four sides. Legionaries stood so close that only the front rows of the outer ranks could fight. The systematic extermination of the surrounded and doomed to imminent death mass of Roman infantry began. It was chopped and stabbed from all sides, covered with a hail of stones, spears, arrows. Only 2,000 Roman soldiers were able to break out of the encirclement and make their way to the ruins of Cannes. But there they caught up and attacked the Libyans' Megarbal. The remnants of the Roman legions began to surrender. The defeat of the Roman armies was complete. 8 legions ceased to exist as organized military units. Only killed and died of wounds. Romans and their allies lost more than 40,000 people. About 10,000 legionaries escaped, later from them in Rome to form 2 new legions. Lucius Aemilius Paul, Marcus Minucius, Gnaeus Servilius died. After the victory at Cannes, Hannibal began to pass all tribes and peoples of southern Italy. Without a fight, surrendered many cities of the province of Campania, including Capua. Union with Carthage against Rome concluded Macedonia, Syracuse, Gaul, several Sicilian cities. The first phase of the Second Punic War ended with a complete victory for Carthage. However, although Rome was defeated but not defeated completely, Hannibal's triumphant victory at Cannes, the greatest masterpiece of tactical and strategic art not only of antiquity, but of all military history. Never before and never in the aftermath of Rome has not suffered such a catastrophic and crushing defeat. The term Cannes has become a nominal name for strategic operations aimed at encircling and complete annihilation of the enemy army in a general battle. This concept was adhered to by the greatest generals and military theorists of world history. In many ways, the victory at Cannes is the result of coordinated actions of infantry. Both Celtic and Iberian, and Libyans, squeezed the Romans on both flanks. And undoubtedly, Gasdrubal's cavalry acted with precision and timing, realizing Hannibal's plan. Hannibal did not take advantage of the victory of the Carthaginian army. Limited to its tactical results, he did not try to turn them into a strategic success. After the defeat of the Romans at Cannes, the Carthaginian army did not go to Rome. Carthaginian Senate, afraid of strengthening the power of Hannibal, did not support his army, which was in Italy, neither fleet nor money. A major victory of the Carthaginian army was not used. Moreover, after the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal tried to offer peace to the Romans. It seemed that such a defeat would be the end of the young Roman Republic, which was now almost no one to defend. But Hannibal did not dare to storm Rome. All generals surrounding Hannibal congratulated him and advised after such a battle to give the rest of the day and the next night to rest for himself and tired soldiers. One only Megarbal, chief of cavalry, believed that it is necessary to go to Rome. Hannibal hesitated. He believed that his army is not adapted to the storming of a large city. As wrote Titus Livius, all are confident that one day delay saved the city and the whole power. Probably Megarbal still was right. If Hannibal had a chance to win the war, then only a sudden campaign after Cannes to Rome. Hannibal apparently thought that after Cannes Rome in any case capitulates. But this calculation did not materialize.